top 5 coach debut questions. These are all coaches, one level or another. Well, some of them, the first 2 are offensive coordinators. The next 3 are head coaches. But these are their debut weeks. And just some questions as they go in. Number 5. What is the Garrett Rhule effect?
Garrett's in a hurry. He's skipping straight to 4.
All right. Well, what is the Garrett Rhule effect at Clemson? And Garrett Rhule joins the staff. First time that in a while that Dabo Swinney has gone outside his own family tree here at Clemson. But the last time he did that was Brent Venables. And I would say that worked swimmingly well.
Sure did.
So, and it worked pretty fast, too, when Brent Venables came on and added his insight to that staff. So how much better does the offense get quickly there? Because he's got some weapons outside of even the quarterback in Cade Klubnik, but Will Shipley, one of the best players in the country, and is fantastic, and maybe one of those guys who when he does leave Clemson, everybody else in the ACC is just going to send him graduation presents. He is that lethal of a player. How can Garrett Rhule affect that offense at Clemson, and how quickly?
Well, he took TCU from like top 70 to top 10.
Yeah.
Great point.
So that's a way he could do it. Not going to have the same lineup necessarily, but I'd imagine Clemson's got as much, if not more talent than TCU has. Not like he's got a high bar to surpass. I mean, if you're comparing him to their national championship team, sure. If you're comparing it to the last couple of years and the staleness of what they've become, then, I think that he's going to do that in pretty quick fashion. Obviously the relationship with Klubnik, really intrigued by if he can be the guy to, bring Klubnik into that final form of being the superstar that a lot of people anticipate him being. But, yeah, I think that his effect will be pretty immediate. He's going to have great weapons. He's going to have a great QB. And, I don't know if they're going to make the playoff right away, but I think it'll be pretty substantial.
Yep. Number 4, will Bobby Petrino's offense look good? And I didn't just do this so that Emory could use this picture again. It's a legitimate question.
Imagine going in front of cameras looking like if he had a do-over, he definitely doesn't do that again, or maybe he does. I don't know.
Just send out a press release. Man.
Yeah,
just send out a press release. But
I like that he's got him photoshopped in A&M gear already.
You know who he looks like? The guy that does the SEC shorts.
That's maybe where that came from.
You know,
did you do that, Emory?
Am I right?
Did you Photoshop? Yeah, he did. I was like, yep. Photoshopped him in A&M gear.
So
greatness.
Yeah.
God.
So but A&M's offense at no point looked good, even against teams that they were supposed to beat. So when they roll out against what is New Mexico this weekend that A&M's playing, are they going to look good? Or are they going to look wonky like they did before? That's my question. I think the offense will be improved because I think Bobby Petrino is going to take something off of Jimbo's plate that he didn't realize he needed taken off, and it won't see it. Now, if that means A&M's 8-4 again, that's still an upgrade from last year, but not where they want to be. But it is going to be interesting to see. Do they look like they know what they're doing, or do they look still stuck in the mud?
I mean, he's a veteran enough coach at this point. I hope all the months that he's had, they look like they know what they're doing, you know. But, yeah, I mean, compared to what it's looked like, I know there's a lot of wishing to fail here, but that's a storyline that was really kind of hot there for a minute and now has died down substantially just because I guess so many other things have happened. But, yeah, there's going to be a lot of interested eyes on A&M early to see just the dynamic between Petrino and Fisher and kind of who has what and who, is whose offense does it look like more? And does it feel like it's Petrino getting the full green light to do whatever it is he wants to do? It's going to be fascinating because he's such a supercharged name, and Jimbo obviously is a lightning rod himself. So this dynamic will be one of the more interesting stories here in the state of Texas.
Number 3, and we talked to Tanner Mordecai earlier this week, but how quickly can Wisconsin light it up? How fast does that happen? I think probably pretty fast, but is there a bit of a learning curve for everybody not named Tanner Mordecai in that? They still have Braylon Allen, so that's going to be fine, but how fast does that turnaround happen from a team that is decades long of Barry Alvarez power football to now the scoreboard churning offense that is going to be Phil Longo?
Yeah, I think it's probably more, I don't know, difficult's the right word, but it'll be more of an adjustment for the people watching than it'll be for the players, I think it's, not elementary school learning when you're talking about some of these up-tempo offenses, but I don't think it's like, learning Mandarin either. So I think with a quarterback with as much experience as Tanner Mordecai has, and you mentioned Braylon Allen, like what a weapon to have, right out of the gates. There will be a learning curve, but I don't think it'll be too long before we see Wisconsin fans' eyes bulging over, like, what is this wizardry on this side of the football, and then Big Ten fans in kind. Now, I'm not acting like everybody's playing caveman football still, all around that league, but it is a little bit of a shakeup from kind of the status quo and the slower plotting sort of stereotypes that there are in regards to offenses. But we've seen Ohio State light it up. I think it'll be quick and normal, and they'll be off to the races pretty quickly.
Okay, remember when Frank Solich was fired? Nebraska is a very, sometimes people didn't quite understand that they threw the ball on average about 17, 18, 19 times a game under Osborne. They did. They had guys who could throw it and some that just weren't very good at it. But it was a culture shock when Callahan came in and started running the West Coast offense. Mm-hmm. And of course, that team flopped pretty quickly. And I bet if it wins, they'll get used to it.
Oh, yeah.
If they don't, then
they're probably fired up for it in so many ways.
I think that's why there was a change, because they got stuck.
It's really that big of a deal. I think there's probably other more pressing issues than whether or not they're going to be able to score points and the culture shock part of it. I think you put the ball in the end zone no matter how you do it, and you get excited about it.
And look, it took some time for them to get out of, and part of it is because Barry Average was until recently the athletic director there. The coaches they were hiring worked for Barry Alvarez.
Yeah.
They had to get out of his tree because it eventually just kind of gotten stale and everybody
was a pretty damn good tree.
It was
for
good.
a long time.
It was.
That will be a
really
culture
was.
shock, though.
Yeah.
It's just kind of just separating yourself from that in so many ways.
But things do get people Jimbo Fisher's dealing with that right now. Is that he had a moment last year where he said, "Oh, the plays are fine." No, the plays were fine. You have not adjusted enough.
But no, the players weren't that fine either.
Yeah, but I mean,
back to Petrino. Does it work? Do they have players that can help it work?
Yeah, but I do think sometimes it's more on the coaches than the players when it's week after week.
Stubborn.
Stubborn. That was different. Number 2, can Matt Rhule match PJ Fleck's physicality? Because Minnesota, that's what he has established. They're a team that's very competitive. Do I think Minnesota's going to challenge for the league title? No, but I do think that they're going to beat some folks up. I think they're going to get bowl eligible. I think they're going to win tight games. I think they're going to control the clock a lot. And Matt Rhule likes that kind of old school socky in the mouth football. And right out of the gate, he's got a team that does pretty much what he wants to do on both sides of the ball. Now, schemes are probably a little bit different, but as far as we're going to be in a street fight kind of a mentality, that's what PJ Fleck has established, and that's what Matt Rhule wants to establish. How has he gotten there in the months since he's been at Nebraska?
First year at Baylor, he had 6 scholarship offensive linemen. That has been one of the issues. I'm not saying Nebraska has 6. They have much more than that. But do they have the dudes up front to run the kind of football that he wants, to play the football he wants to play? That's the bottom line, and sometimes that might take a year or two.
This will be, interesting game because I think they're kind of two teams that are sort of viewed in the same places of, bowl eligibility, but not a whole heck of a lot more than that. I think, Minnesota should be the favorite here, but I'm really intrigued to see how Nebraska looks in game number 1. Like I said earlier, I think it's going to take some time to really fully instill what Matt Rhule wants to do. But the thing is, we won't compare it to Baylor and all that. It's an entirely different situation.
Well, he's got that transfer portal now that he can.
He's got the transfer portal. He doesn't have ESPN outside the lines covering his football team every single day, literally every single day of the year for the entire first year. So, compared to the Baylor situation, he's in freaking Hollywood, given the expectations and just the pressures and things. Now, granted, there's major pressure to win there, but I just think it's a totally different situation that he's facing, and wouldn't be surprised to see Nebraska necessarily win this game right out of the gates. But they'll definitely match the physicality. I think if they're gonna do one thing, that's the thing I would bank on the most.
They've lost 4 straight to the Gophers, who one time back in the glory years of Osborne, Nebraska beat them 84-13.
Oh my gosh. Number 1. How quickly can Deion make this CU team work? How quickly can they gel? I think that's they're going to have we talked about it earlier. They have a really tough schedule. This is probably not the schedule any coach, even Deion, the most supremely confident human being who is ever human being, would even pick, because it is very, very tough. And they have a whole new roster. But how quickly can it – and I'm not even talking about winning games. I'm talking about how competitive can you be? How much of a scare can you put in a team like USC or Oregon? Like, how ready are you for that? How quickly can you make that work? Because that's not only a model for just Deion Sanders as he moves forward at Colorado, it's a model for modern college football.
Right.
And if somebody can figure out how to make 51 new players work really quickly, then people are going to try to copy it. Now, it may be like the flex defense where only Tom Landry could call it, and everybody else could call something like the flex defense back in the day if it does work. But will be really interesting to see if he can make this thing work pretty quickly with turning over a roster of that size. How many people will try to copy it and figure out how he did it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough first game right out of the gates. I mean, with TCU, that could be very ugly very quickly, just based on where they're both coming from here in game number one, and then, being on the road as well for Colorado. But I don't know, but we're about to find out, because that schedule is not going to give them any breathing room whatsoever, especially early on. So he's diving right into the deep end, and I'm sure he'd probably, would at least say that he'd have it no other way. But regardless, they're jumping right into the deep end. So, you may give it a little bit of a curve if they do struggle, of just like, hey, there was a lot of turnover, and it's not like they're playing Southeast Missouri State right out of the gates, and then following it up with Texas State, and then following it up with, Cal Lutheran or whatever. They're going TCU on the road after the national championship, game run. Nebraska, just a rivalry there, and the fact that Rhule's a new coach. I mean, you got your rival in Colorado State, from a state standpoint, and then right into Oregon on the road. I mean, that's the first month of the year for them, and then right after USC. So, man, buckle up, Deion. It's about to get really real very quickly. And you know what? We're going to have a lot to unpack one way or the other with these Buffaloes and his tenure and the way it begins.